Hello everyone, it's Friday afternoon, which means one thing, it's time to talk motorsport on pole position. Welcome to another Hangout. We've got lots of lovely guests to talk through things today. Our main topic today, though, being, are you Team Lewis or Team Nico? So first things first, if you're new to pole position, I'm Rosanna, do a little bit of presenting, and we can start with Aaron first. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Aaron. I do YouTube called GMX Gaming UK, and I'm a big fan of F1, of course.
Very good, that's perfect, that's all we need. We need a fan of F1, that is what we like on the show. Josh, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, hi guys, I'm Josh. You may know me as Smooth Racing. Specialise in F1, GP2, GP3, and also know a bit about WRC. Just happy to be here.
Well, that's perfect, and you're wearing a Marussia hat. Very apt at this point, I think. Very, very good. Sean, can you intro yourself, please?
Who, me? Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm a big fan of F1. I do my own. I do follow F1 a lot, and I've been sticking through it even during the Vettel era, shall I say?
That's true dedication. You've got through the snooze fest, so that is good news. We like that. Thank you for joining us. And Edgar, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, I'm a big fan of Formula One, and I like MotoGP too.
Perfect. We like a MotoGP fan. And where are you joining us from today, Edgar? Edgar, where are you from?
I'm from Latvia.
Latvia, wow. Okay, we've never had a Latvian on the show, so welcome. So everybody, thank you very much. Carmen's also watching, so she might have some questions as well. So if you want to get involved, comment below. We want to know if you're Team Nico or Team Lewis, so comment on the thread or send us a tweet at polepositionp1, and I'll do my best to read some of your comments and questions out. Right, so what an amazing Monaco Grand Prix. Usually it's quite a quiet race. It's sometimes a bit of a procession, a bit of a train, not much overtaking happens. Luckily this weekend, of course, we had this huge debate over whether Nico Rosberg caused a yellow flag on purpose in the last minute of qualifying to stop his teammate Lewis Hamilton being able to set the pole lap. Now, first things first, we've introduced our guests on the show. I now want to know if you're Team Nico or Team Lewis. Josh, can you start this off for us, please?
Well, I don't really support either of them, but sort of. I'll just say I'm supposed I'm Team Lewis. But
okay. Team Lewis, very good. We've got one Team Lewis.
For both of them.
Very, very good. Aaron, Team Lewis or Team Nico?
I'm Team Nico.
I'm writing this down so I don't forget who's partial to who. Okay. So we've got Aaron with Nico. Very nice. Edgar, are you a Nico or a Lewis fan?
Nico.
Nico. Okay, nice. And Sean?
I'm honestly swaying towards Nico as well since Monaco.
Right. Okay, so well that is a nice little bit to kick off with there, saying that you've changed your mind after Monaco. Sean, do you think Lewis behaved unacceptably in Monaco?
I mean, there's being a sore loser, and that's exactly what Lewis has been. I mean, he just when Nico celebrates on the podium when he comes second to Lewis, but Lewis just sort of threw the toys out and wandered off, really.
Yeah, there was no handshakes or smiles on the podium for each other, was there?
No.
And what do you think? Is that a bad thing for the sport? Do you think there should be more sportsmanship between the two of them, or do you think it's quite interesting to see a debate playing out like that on the TV?
Oh, it's quite interesting, yes, but I think it's just bad sportsmanship. You've got to be gracious in winning and gracious in losing, to be honest.
Yeah, very good advice. I like that. I agree with that as well. Interestingly, I was just looking on Twitter, and Lewis has just posted a tweet saying that he's had a chat with Nico. They're now cool, as he would say. They've always been friends, and they had their ups and downs. And then he posted a picture of him and Nico on unicycles when they were younger. It looks like they're in a paddock somewhere. Do you think he can reconcile that with a tweet? Do you think his behaviour is now forgiven?
I mean, things like that, they take a while to mend themselves, but he's at least made sort of a bridge towards getting friendship back with Nico, shall I say.
So Josh, you are a Lewis fan. What did you think of Lewis's behaviour at the weekend?
Well, I don't think it was acceptable and definitely not quite as good, but I suppose you can see why, because he's annoyed after qualifying. But I think that tweet probably wasn't his own. It was probably Mercedes telling him to do that after all the reaction he got. But
A good idea there. I can sort of agree with you on that one. A lot of PR and a lot of messaging and marketing going on there, probably behind the scenes. Josh, I have to just comment, your background is fantastic. You're a massive fan. I can see all your cars in the background. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Who's your favourite team then? You like Marussia? You like McLaren? I can see in the background there.
Force India, actually.
Force India.
Marussia. Yeah.
What a year for them already as well, with Perez getting a podium.
Yeah, I mean, I think Hülkenberg surprisingly hasn't got the podium, but bit of bad luck for Perez in Monaco, but I think it was a good race.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay, so you're Team Lewis. Well, let's ask Edgar then. You're a Team Nico supporter. Did you think Nico deserved to be on pole position? Edgar? Okay, let's go to Aaron maybe instead. Aaron, as Team Nico, do you think he was deserving of his pole position at the weekend?
Well, he did set the fastest lap in his first run, and he did try and go fastest in his second run and that, but I think he may have pushed a little bit too far and obviously made a mistake, of course. But what people were saying, obviously, that Nico did a delivery in that, the FIA and the stewards have all the information, see whether if Nico did cheat or not because of the telemetry and that. They said he didn't cheat in that, so I thought Nico obviously deservedly did pole because he did the fastest lap. And, being Monaco being a straight track, hazardous things can happen and that. So, a yellow flag can alter qualifying and that. But I think Nico deserved pole in that.
Do you know what I think is interesting? I was talking to someone about it yesterday, that as a non-driver, you think it's pretty impossible to manipulate the car in that way, or you think it maybe could be possible. Oh, Charles has joined us. Charles, how are you? Charles? Turn your mic on, Charles.
Right, can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect. Better late than never. Welcome to the Hangout. Are you Team Nico or Team Lewis, Charles?
Team Lewis, for
Team
sure.
Lewis. Okay, well, we were just chatting. Yeah. We've identified who's on which team. You're on Team Lewis, so we've now got 2 Team Lewises versus 3 Team Nicos.
Okay.
Okay. I was just saying that the mere fact that people think he could have done it deliberately means it is possible to do it deliberately. Do you agree, Charles?
Yes, because I mean, if you look at the side-by-side onboard footage, you can see that he clearly is soaring away at the wheel, and obviously that would induce a lockup. But in the sense of Nico Rosberg, I don't think he would have done it deliberately. Although yes, it could be done deliberately. Definitely possible.
Yes, exactly. So that's the interesting point, isn't it? That it is possible. Did you watch Mika Hakkinen being interviewed by Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert, and Simon Lazenby when he kept on sort of being very shifty, trying not to give an answer?
Yeah, trying to avoid the question. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's obviously, drivers believe it's possible. You can do that kind of thing, even on a tricky track like Monaco. And of course, there was that amazing escape road right there.
Yeah.
It just happened to be at Mirabeau at that lovely point. He didn't cheat at the harbour, do you know what I mean? He didn't end up in the pool or something.
I think, I mean, the fact that he did go down the escape road is sort of like his sort of saving grace. I think if he did park it in the middle of the corner, then definitely, for sure, the stewards would have no reason to not penalise him effectively. But the fact that he did go all the way down the escape road, and then I thought it must have been some sort of precaution that the waves yellows were actually sort of waved because it was quite a way down, means that probably wasn't totally deliberate.
And do you think Lewis could have got pole? He was going fastest in that first sector.
I think, yeah.
Longest.
I think, yeah, he would have got pole, yeah, because, I mean, I think the middle sector is really sort of like, you've got the tunnel, you've got like the really hard braking that you've got over the bump, over the crest into the light. And so that area is where a lot of time is lost. And I think because he was up on that sector, he would have been powerful in that sector as it was previously. I think the final sector is just like what Rascasse and pretty much Rascasse is the main corner. The final sector, I think he would have probably got pole if it wasn't for the wave yellows.
It is a shame. Charles, just tell me, are you in a tent?
No, I'm actually in the Barbican, London, if you can.
Oh, very cool, very cool.
I'm actually doing some revision, but I wanted to
defend.
You're
doing revision. That you're joining a hangout. Okay, so what about Edgar's? I want to hear from Edgar's. Is he still there?
Yeah.
Has he gone? I think Edgar's is gone. So, Sean, what do you think? Do you think Lewis Hamilton had what it took to put his car in pole position last weekend? Or do you think this was all just a way of showing actually he wasn't fast enough when it really mattered?
Well, I mean, if the yellow flag obviously spoiled it. You'd never know without seeing it happen, really. I mean, Rosberg, I think, was just pushing too hard, and he and as a result locked up, and luckily he had that escape road to not wreck the car basically. That would have made it worse.
I've got some comments actually I want to share with you guys. So people who have commented on our race room that we did on earlier this week. I've got Random Guy 69 saying Lewis is the better driver. Now, who agrees with that? Because you can argue over Monaco until you're blue in the face, whether it was on purpose or by mistake or whatever. But ultimately, it does kind of come down who's the better driver. And after Monaco, Montreal, strong track for Lewis Hamilton. Is Lewis the better driver? Are we going to see him as the world champion again this year? Charles?
Yes, I think we are, simply because I was, like I said, I wasn't a Nico fan. I was always a Lewis fan. However, I did highly respect Nico Rosberg, and a lot of the defense for Nico Rosberg comes from the fact that he understands his car. He's more of an engineer. He's come from that sort of background, in the sense that he's come from more of a science background than a pure racing background. And my refute to that point is simply that your driver is employed by the team. The team have hundreds of engineers. They have a massive department to do the engineering. Your task as a driver is simply to get in the car and set the fastest time possible and manage fuel or do whatever in the race. And Hamilton has definitely got that nailed. I mean, in the past, he has had issues. I mean, clearly at McLaren, we saw the fact that tyre management was something that he just basically couldn't do. If you compared to Jenson Button, he was very smooth with his tyres, very smooth with his driving style. But I think as he's come of age, he's become older, and he's he's moved to Mercedes. And I think that when he first wanted to move to Mercedes, it seemed like a bit of a scary move. But he knew, and I know that for the fact that he would have been talking, he would have known about the engine change, and that's why he definitely moved there. And he knew that he had to change up. He knew that the tyres was going to become critical, fuel especially was going to become critical. And he's been working on that. I mean, he said himself that he knows that he has weaker tracks, like say Monaco, for instance, and he's had to work harder than normal because he knows that Nico is an extremely tough competitor. And this year, it's only really them in the running. He has no other excuse. You can't blame it on Sebastian Vettel or something like that. It's just him. And I think, in terms of the better driver, he does have that natural, pure racecraft. I mean, we saw that pre-Formula One. In the lower formulas, and even when he was in karting days, we saw that there was something about him that captured Ron Dennis's eye. And the fact that now he has got the car, I don't see no reason why he shouldn't win.
That is very true. Now, I have to bring up, though, that he was using different modes, supposedly, and I kind of know it's true, in Bahrain and China. Do you think, basically, if you want to win it, you just got to try everything, just throw everything at the book, you just got to go for it?
Yeah, I mean, the different modes, I think if he was using different modes, as in, was that sort of like a team decision, or was that him and his engineer?
I think that's him just playing around with things. I mean, he even says himself on the formation lap, he tries different modes, he tries different things, he runs slower, goes faster, because they've been bringing this new rule in about the formation lap with the cars having to go a certain speed because some of them have been holding back. And he said himself that he's guilty of that. So he's always tinkering with the car, he's always thinking about what he can get out of it. So maybe, they just have to throw everything that they know
and then see
about winning.
Execution is what will carry them forward.
Exactly. Aaron, what do you think? Is Lewis Hamilton a better driver than Nico Rosberg?
I hate to have to say this, but yes, I think Hamilton is the better driver.
And your team, Nico. Ooh, yeah.
I have a reason. It's because I think Lewis's maturity over the past few years has uplifted a little bit. I don't know if it's Hamilton himself or it's just the British media being all like its usual self, making the story bigger than it is. But I think Hamilton, out of all the people on the grid at the moment, I think he is the best. He is one of the best, along with Alonso, Vettel.
Yeah. Okay.
But what was that? Sorry.
I mean, I would have said that, as you said, he's one of the best in the grid. However, I would not say he's the best driver. I'd say he's second. Who do you say
is the best driver? Who's the best driver, John?
Fernando Alonso, I think he actually works magic. Like, what he does with his car is, in some cases, impossible. Kimi Raikkonen is not a bad driver, clearly. And Kimi Raikkonen, is putting the car in 6th, 7th, 8th position. And Fernando Alonso can drag it to 5th in qualifying. The Ferrari is pretty much not meant to be there. I mean, you've got teams, sort of like Force India, for instance, who could be up there with the Mercedes engine. And what he does with his car, year after year after year, is qualify higher than it does, and somehow in race conditions can get podiums. And I think that is what makes him an insanely good driver. Because we've seen with Sebastian Vettel, I'm not saying he's a bad driver, but we've seen that he hasn't got the best car, and we can sort of see Daniel Ricciardo, for instance, is clearly qualifying higher than him, although he has had a few issues, etc., etc. But I do think Fernando Alonso has proven time and time again why he is the highest paid driver in Formula One.
Yeah, I think Alonso definitely has it. But I think Lewis is good. But people are talking about who's hungrier for the win. Who wants to be World Championship most out of Nico and Lewis? James Edel says here that he thinks Well, he says, I prefer Lewis, but I think Nico's tried quite hard to get the team high up the grid, meaning he wants more success than Lewis, and the hunger for winning is high. And we've heard Lewis sort of trying to blame his background, or not blame his background, but give his background as the reason why he's hungrier for the championship win than Nico. Do you think that comes into play? Is it not just racing for winning the whole time? It doesn't really matter where you're coming from?
Yeah, I think...
Aaron or Charles, or even Josh. Josh, what about you?
I think they're both really hungry for it. I mean, Hamilton's won before, so you'd think that Rosberg would be more hungrier. But I think because he hadn't won since '08, and Hamilton's had a lot more challenges for the title than Rosberg. This is Rosberg's first ever real challenge for the title. So I think probably Hamilton is more hungry because he's been in this situation, a lot. And back in '07, we was teammates with Alonso. Of course, there was a big rivalry between them. Everyone's saying they were Senna and Prost, but I don't think him and Rosberg are quite the same yet of Hamilton and Alonso. I think it's just probably the media, bigging it up a bit.
Yeah.
Hamilton saying he wanted to settle the argument like Senna and Prost.
That was...
Josh, you didn't like that. You didn't like that, Josh.
No, because it's not the same. Because they've said stuff off track, but if you look at what's actually happened on track, it's not nearly as big.
Yeah.
Nice. I like it.
I think for modern Formula One, I think the days of sort of like it was a lot more like the driver before the team, I guess. But now the teams are so much bigger than they were before. You can't just go and start a team now. You're global. You're a brand. Like for instance, Mercedes, they can't really have their drivers sort of fighting on track in that sort of way because the cameras are everywhere. If the cameras see that, then okay, so this is how Mercedes control their drivers. This is what management is like, and then it's sort of like it goes bigger and bigger and bigger. So these days, especially like Ferrari, I mean, you've heard the Montezemolo time and time again say it's always about Ferrari. It's about the team. It's never the drivers. Drivers are part of the team.
The puzzle.
Exactly. So I think it is definitely a lot of on-track action. I think off-track, they're fine. I think even Nico himself said he's had words with both of them and talks about the fact that points is the key thing for them. They need to win the Constructors' Championship because for them, money is where the Constructors is. Tens of millions of pounds for the leader for the win of the Constructors' Championship, effectively. So I think, in terms of the hungriness. So going back to the hungry question, I think they are equally as hungry because Nico, as Josh said, has not won it before, and that would make you hungrier than ever. But Lewis, there's something about when you're close to winning and you don't win, that sort of hunger. It's sort of like I was almost there, and that's sort of like, and he's had that year after year after year, and that's sort of like built up to sort of like a similar level of hunger that Nico has.
I think, yeah, exactly. Lewis has got something to prove, hasn't he? He's still got to try and prove to everyone why he moved to Mercedes, why it was the right move. And as you say, Nico wants to win it for the first time. So, two, I think, big motivation for both of the drivers. Sean, what do you think? Do you think we'll see Nico on the top of the leaderboard at the end of the year, or do you think it will be Lewis?
Well, I'm honestly think it's going to go one way or the other. I mean, it's going to swap every other race, I think, to as they gain a first and a second. And Mercedes has got it sewn up. But honestly, I think Hamilton's probably looking for his fix to win again. So I reckon he might be hungrier, but also Nico will probably say, well, I don't want to be beaten by my teammate. I want to really go for this, and I want to win.
Aaron, what about you? Do you reckon Montreal might be the decider? Do you think if Lewis wins there, then it's game over? Or if you think Nico wins there, then that's Lewis's mental challenge over and done with?
I think if Nico won in Canada, then I think it will put Lewis under more pressure because at a track where Lewis has won a number of times and somehow his teammate wins in that specific track, and then it starts to raise the question whether can Lewis actually keep the momentum going into future tracks like Hungary or Italy, where Lewis has won in previous years. But I think that when to go back to the question, is Lewis hungrier than Nico? Different backgrounds in that. Nico came from a father that has won a championship. Lewis has came from a family in Stevenage. But in Lewis's karting days, he was obviously linked to McLaren, of course, and Nico just played the game, the casual driver game, gradually through the ranks, and then when it got into GP2 and then got into Formula 1 in 2006 with Williams and that. And then, well, Nico obviously made his progression into top team like Mercedes, like the normal driver way. You know, take it year by year, and then when the success comes, he goes for it. Lewis, I think he's been lucky within coming into McLaren, and then automatically every single year he's been challenging for the title ever since he started in 2007. So I think that with Lewis saying he's hungrier than that, I think that it's just saying that, you know, he's more experienced with the success than Nico.
Very good. I'm loving the analysis. Charles, you wanted to say something else?
I completely agree with what Aaron said about Montreal, and it's almost like the flip of Monaco. You know, Monaco, I think, is a very technical track, and I think Nico, as I said before, he's more for the engineer, sort of the mathematician, the technical driver. So Montreal's the flip side. I mean, if you look at it, it's like a little chicane, a straight. You know, it's very, very open. You spend a high percentage of time on full throttle, so it's definitely a Hamilton track in that regard. And if, just like in Monaco, if Rosberg was to win, it would extremely dent Hamilton's, you know. I guess his pride, but also like, you know, he's like, you know, this is my track and I've been beaten by my teammate. You know, it's psychologically damaging. And the thing about that is you don't just recover after a race. It's not like you crash and then the next race your car's fine. Like, you know, you're still broken the next race after that. So it could take quite a while to regain that sort of, you know, that.
And we've got to remember, Montreal's a track where the qualifying position isn't as important as Monaco, exactly. And the start is much easier, well, not easier, but, you know, there's not that problem. And Lewis has been so much stronger than Nico on the start. So perhaps it'll all fall back to Lewis.
I mean, I think Lewis has got it for Montreal. I think because he's consistently faster and faster. You've got to think, you know, there's something about the track in particular he may know than the others. Like, for instance, Michael Schumacher, back in the day, he continued setting, like, you know, fastest lap times on his favorite tracks, and you've got to think, okay, there must be like a corner, or, you know, or a straight where he's maybe using a higher gear, or there's something that the opponent can't replicate. Because in the case of Rosberg and Hamilton, they're two teammates fighting for the same team. It's not like Alonso and Vettel was in previous years, where they don't have the same information. Like, you know, Hamilton can go to his engineer, okay, can I have the telemetry on Spurs past lap? Oh, okay, look, he was passing there. I mean, we've heard on the radio, you know, to Hamilton, it's like, you know, Rosberg's in gear 5 in this corner in turn 8, and, you know, you're using gear 4, use a high gear. There's like, you know, yeah, exactly. So, you know, that's another thing. You know, maybe Rosberg can use that to his advantage, like Hamilton potentially could have done in Monaco. I mean, obviously he was unfortunate in the race with the safety car that, you know, he couldn't capitalise on the pit stop, but.
Yeah, that was a shame. No, we all know, you know, Montreal, we know Lewis Hamilton's strong at. We don't know about Austria. Now, that's something that will put a massive spanner in the works, and we also obviously don't know about Russia. And there are a few places where you think actually maybe Lewis's sort of superior skill will come into play on a track where the drivers aren't familiar with. Do you think that will have an effect? Aaron, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Austria will play a big effect in the championship, because the only two drivers on the grid that have experienced Austria before is Alonso and Raikkonen, and they're both at Ferrari. So I think, and obviously it's a high-speed track, so the Mercedes engine will play perfect to the Mercedes team. But I think it raises a big question whether who will be the better driver in Austria. Will it be Rosberg or will it be Hamilton? And that, I think that's the race where we see who could be possibly the favourite for the title out of them two drivers.
And isn't it exciting that it's actually coming up quite soon, so we can have that moment quite quickly, and before Silverstone, where again obviously the momentum goes back behind Lewis because he's in front of his home crowd. Is anyone going to be at Silverstone?
No, I'm not.
Exactly not.
But I don't think I want it.
No, just watching from home. It's still as good. You get to see everything much more. I promise you.
At home for me, you often see the helicopters flying over. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh no, well Silverstone will be good because Lewis, as I say, he's going to have his home crowd behind him. It's a strong race for him. Obviously, last year was looking pretty good, but of course Nico then won out at the end of that one too. So it's going to be an interesting one over the next few races. As we go into the summer break, who do you think? I want you all to say who you think will be top of the leaderboard. Let's start with you, Josh.
It's got to be Hamilton from Rosberg and Ricciardo.
Okay, in that order. Very good, very nice. Sean, what about you?
I think the same, to be honest. I think Hamilton's going to just edge out Rosberg, and then Ricciardo will follow shortly on behind.
And you don't think Vettel will make any ground?
Well, I think he'll be behind Ricciardo. I think Ricciardo's honestly a better driver.
Ooh.
Ooh.
No,
Wow.
I agree.
Controversy.
No, I said it and raised to him.
I can't disagree. I
Yeah.
really disagree.
Charles, do you think the same lineup?
I'm going to say the exact same thing. Yeah, Hamilton, Rosberg, and Ricardo's, and I think Ricardo is an amazing driver. And I think if Renault catch up next year, I don't think it can't really be this year. But if Renault do catch up next year, and possibly Ricardo is definitely in the running for the championship for 2015.
I think we've got Honda coming into play next year.
Yeah, that's also the thing. The Honda and McLaren team, if that possibly, if that comes back, then.
Yeah, it's going to be a one to watch. Aaron, what about you? What's your prediction for the top 3 spots going into the summer break?
I think Rosberg, Hamilton, and then Ricciardo.
As well. It is interesting, isn't it? Vettel is just not in the top 3. It's weird not talking about him,
Yeah, he's just like taking a back seat.
Yeah, and we used to be like, oh, are you bored of Vettel? Are you bored of watching him go around in a separate race, essentially? And now it's like you're not even really talking about him because he's not even in the top 5 at the moment.
Yeah, it is a bit weird, but at least he's proven that he can race. Time and time again, people have always said, he's always been in the distance. And, the few times that we have seen him on camera, on television, he is making good overtakes. He is making passes.
Yeah, that was great. Spain was good. That showcased that he can still overtake, which was an interesting prospect. We all thought that had finished. No, it's going to be an interesting one, I think, as we head towards the middle of the season. So predictions for Montreal. Please, may I have your podium predictions, starting with you, Josh.
Well, like you said, like we've already mentioned, Montreal is pretty much a Hamilton track, so he'll probably get the triple crown. The fastest lap and position.
Just before we give all the rest of the podium predictions, what happens, do you reckon, if we have another, DNF? Or Lewis not finishing like he did in Australia? Imagine if Rosberg didn't finish or Lewis didn't finish. Can we envisage that? Do you think the Mercedes will make another mistake again?
I think another DNF would ruin the championship of the person that actually got the DNF, because I think we saw Hamilton was out in the first race and it took him 4 races to win to get that points advantage back, and it's like now there's not enough races left in the season. If you DNF, you can't just win another 4 races. They're not like what's the start of the season.
That was the weird thing, wasn't it? Looking at the stats, and you see Nico still leading the championship at that point, and Lewis having 1 and 4, and you just think this can't be right. This is so weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so Aaron, your top 3 for Montreal. Who do you think will be on the top step of the podium?
I'm gonna have to say Lewis for the win, Nico second, and then for some reason I'm saying Alonso first.
I was gonna chuck it Alonso.
Something says in my brain that Alonso will.
Great minds thinking alike there.
Yeah.
That was going to be my podium.
Last year was very strong for Red Bull. They got their first win there. So could Ricciardo actually jump both the Mercedes?
I think Montreal is just too high speed a track. I think the engine is so far superior that, especially in a place like Montreal, where it's like the main passing opportunities are down those 2 straights, and they are long straights. And I think even with DRS, I do not think that the Red Bull will actually be able to have a passing advantage, let's say in the first 2 or 3 laps against the Mercedes, simply because just a boost of the ERS system. They've got that special button where you sort of increase the amount of energy generation that you get from the power unit, from the energy store into the drivetrain. I think that coupled with the Mercedes power will carry them through to victory. And then Alonso just there with his magic to get that podium spot.
The magician of F1, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Sean, do you agree? Does Alonso feature in your top 3 for Montreal?
He might do. I think Hamilton's going to get it unless he has a problem, but there's always Nico to throw a spanner in the works. It all depends on how they qualify and how the weekend plays out. But, if it's another wet one where Button won that time where he overtook Vettel on the full wet section on slicks, that was just amazing.
Yeah, if we see wet in Montreal, who knows what could happen. So we've spoken for half an hour about Team Nico, Team Lewis. Has anyone changed their mind? Does anyone want to switch camps?
No, I'm fine.
I am quite happy over here at Team Lewis.
Yeah. Josh, are you happy where you were?
Yeah, well, on who I think will win the championship is definitely Lewis, but I think in terms of popularity, who I'd rather support, probably Nico.
For Nico, so you've changed your mind a bit during the Hangout. Ooh, okay. Well, maybe Lewis can grow up a little bit before Montreal and stop acting like a spoiled kid. Maybe his tweet is the first step towards becoming a bit more grown up, shall we say.
Totally.
And Sean, you haven't changed your mind?
No, I'm still slightly on the Rosberg camp. I mean, I'm not a big Rosberg fan, but I prefer him over Hamilton at this stage.
Right, well, let's hope Lewis gets his act together and you guys can all return to Team Lewis. Thank you very much for joining us for our debate today. Keep an eye on the channel because the video on demand will be going up so you can watch it back and see if you agreed with all the people taking part in our video debate. And keep an eye on the channel, subscribe for many more videos from the world of motorsport. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.